Find out what the nonprofit lending specialists at the Vermont Community Loan Fund can do for your community at investinvermont.org. That's investinvermont.org.
Hi, I'm Denny Stelter, an MRI technologist at Copley Hospital. MRI scans provide great detail in identifying what is causing your health issues. At Copley Hospital, we perform MRIs for many reasons, such as painful hips, knees, shoulders, or other joints. We also look at the brain, spine, abdomen, blood vessels, and more. We work closely with area providers as well as our orthopedic team, general surgeons, neurologists, and emergency physicians. As a technologist behind the control desk, I can assure you the imaging we capture is the highest quality. Our new MRI, upgraded in 2022, offers the largest open-ended bore and a mirror system that allows you to watch videos or listen to your favorite music, all while having your scan with improved comfort and concise imaging. We are with you throughout your scan, observing you and your vital signs, and can see how relaxed you are or if you're getting anxious. High-quality care close to home. For more information on Copley's MRI services or other diagnostic imaging questions, visit us at copleyvt.org.
New England Municipal Resource Center, NEMRIC, supporting one-of-a-kind local businesses like WDEV to preserve the distinct character of Vermont. The Brady Farkas Show is produced and funded by WDEV and the Radio Vermont Group. We welcome listener feedback. Email your comments to wdev@radiovermont.com.
The energy. The guy told me I was no spring chicken anymore, and that's why my ankle was still hurting. I'm 33, not 133. The passion. The Red Sox handling of Xander Bogaerts is a complete organizational failure. The opinions on all your favorite teams. No, not this year, but it's next year where Bill Belichick ends up on the hot seat. This is the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV AM, FM, and WDEVradio.com. What's up, everybody? Happy Monday right here on the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV AM and FM and WDEVradio.com. We've got a full show today, all 90 minutes. We need all 90 minutes. We got a lot going on. We're going to talk with former NFL offensive lineman, former Patriots offensive lineman, Ross Tucker, in about 15 minutes. We'll get you ready for the Super Bowl. We kick off our Super Bowl week coverage, talk some Patriots and Super Bowl with Ross at 6:30. Former NBA assistant general manager Bobby Marks is going to be with us. We'll talk about the Kyrie Irving trade and some Celtic stuff as well. An interesting opinion piece on the state of high school athletics from the County Courier and our guy Ben Kaufman up there. So lots to get to over the course of the next 90 minutes. You can get in on the Napa Morrisville, Napa Waterbury text line. That's 802-585-3026. Your locally owned Napa stores in Waterbury and Morrisville. You can also watch us every single day, Facebook Live, YouTube Live as well. Get your comments in. Texter says you need to change your intro to the show again. Yes, we do. Yes, the intro needs to be updated about every 2 months. We're on month 2.5 now, so yes, we know it's on the to-do list. Trust me. So, on that note, happy Monday. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And here we go.
The opening thoughts on the Brady Farkas Show are brought to you by Sticks and Stuff and Swanton Lumber, Vermont's most complete locally owned home center. Locations in Enosburg, Derby, Middlesex, St. Albans, and at Swanton Lumber. They're online at sticksandstuff.com. I want to explain what's happening this week briefly. This is our third consecutive year of doing this, our third consecutive year of what we call Radio Row at Home. And the goal of this week is to bring you simply the biggest names and the best guests that we can possibly find. Our goal is not to overload the show. We don't want to have 5 guests a show, maybe 2, maybe 3, but nonetheless, we want our guests this week to be cream of the crop. Some of them will have great local ties, some names you haven't heard from in a while. Some of them will have great national tie-ins as well. But we want to bring you the biggest names and the best guests that we possibly can. This is one of my favorite weeks of the year, but it's also a week that has really changed for me, and I'll tell you why. It's changed for me recently. If you are listening this week to any national radio show, almost any national radio show, almost all of them are in Phoenix or in Glendale near the Super Bowl site, right? The Dan Patrick Show, the Pat McAfee Show, nearly anyone who's anyone is at the Super Bowl site. And then there's the biggest names and the best guests there too, right? Biggest names in sports media, biggest names in NFL media, entertainers, actors, actresses, football players currently, football players of the past, Hall of Famers. Doesn't matter. The scene in Phoenix is crazy. And there's all the media there to talk to all of these people. Well, we are recreating that here, right? If you're in Glendale, biggest names, best guess. But you're restricted to who's on site. Here, we're at home. Biggest names, best guess, whoever we want. I love Super Bowl week. I love talking with people. I love schmoozing with people. I love meeting big wigs. I love meeting Hall of Famers. That's all great. That's great for me. It's not necessarily great for you, though. So about 3 years ago, we came up with the idea of Radio Row at Home, in which we think we can bring you the biggest names and best guests, but we can tailor it to people you might be interested in. Because here's how Radio Row works, right? Radio Row works by you just talk to whoever's there. And I spent many a Radio Row. I've been to Radio Row 4 times. I've spent many a Radio Row talking to some backup tight end on the Browns. I've been to Radio Row many times and talked to some backup offensive lineman that most of you have never heard of. And yes, I've talked to Hall of Famers and Miss America. I've talked to all those people, but I've also talked to a lot of people and comedians that you don't really care about. So we decided that when I got to DEV that we were going to bring you the feel of it, but we were going to do it at home, and we were going to give you some of that experience without the people that you don't care about. Sounds like a good plan to me. Sounds like a fair deal to me as well. It is really fun to be at Radio Row and be in the middle of the hubbub. And the first time I ever got to go, man, I thought I had made it. I thought it was so cool. And I remember talking to Curtis Martin and Too Tall Jones and John Hanna and sitting next to Emmitt Smith and sitting next to Joe Buck and talking to Joe Buck and eating lunch next to Troy Aikman. That was really, really cool. And it's really fun to name drop on those kind of stories. It doesn't do a whole lot, though, for our listeners. So we're trying to do more for our listeners this year. I don't think that we need to go to Radio Row to bring you cool coverage. And the other thing that we're able to cut out is the way radio works is this. All those people are there. Most of them are there because they're being paid to be there. So you're going to talk to Marshawn Lynch for 8 minutes, and that's cool. But the last 2 are going to be about Skittles because that's who's paying for them. And I remember Fred Jackson, the old Bills running back, and he was wearing a Toyota shirt, and you had to ask him a question about Toyota. And when I interviewed Curtis Martin, he was talking about a different kind of football helmet. And Mike Haynes, the old Patriots defensive back, who's in the Hall of Fame, 8 minutes on the Pats and the Super Bowl, 2 minutes on why you should get screened for testicular cancer. I mean, some of that stuff is not overly interesting. We've been able to cut out most of that. Now, Ross Tucker's got a sponsored thing. He's the only one all week that I'm bringing on, I think, that has a sponsored thing. He's the only one. Just because I like Ross and because he used to play for the Patriots. So I hope you're excited about it. I'm excited about it. It takes a lot of work from our staff to coordinate this. You know, again, former athletes, media people, people with local ties, people with regional ties. We're doing all of it. Ross Tucker will be on in a couple of minutes. 6:30 tonight, former Nets assistant general manager Bobby Marks. More texts on the Napa Morrisville, Napa Waterbury text line, 802-585-3026. Rex in Enosburg. Brady, thank you for doing this. I've always enjoyed your Super Bowl week coverage. Looking forward to seeing who comes on this week. Well, thank you very much, Rex. Lou over in Burlington, he wants me to name drop more. Who are some of the other best people you've spoken to? Well, I mean, Curtis Martin, like I just said, Miss America, Joe Buck, Too Tall Jones, John Hanna, Mike Greenberg, Mike Golick, Michelle Tafoya, Matthew Slater, Rex Burkhead. Frank Caliendo was really cool. Frank Caliendo was awesome. That was one of the more memorable ones. So there's a lot of people that I've talked to at Radio Row. But again, not all of those people are, one, available this year. And two, they're not all appealing to our listeners. I remember I had a tight end on for the Browns one year, and I'm thinking to myself, it's cool for me to say that, say it's like it's cool for me to meet this guy and ask questions, but I don't think our listeners really care. And I don't think we need to be doing this. And I had a backup offensive lineman for the Vikings, and I'm like, I don't think we need to be doing this. So since I got here, we've pared it back and said we don't need to go. We're just going to put our energy into emptying the contact list, and the people that we can get here, that people will be interested in. Look, I don't ever like to commit to a guest because I know things could happen and I know someone's schedule can get funky. But Ryan Russillo is planning on coming on this week. I don't know what day yet. I don't know what time yet, but Russillo is planning on coming on, right? He went to UVM, national media personality. He's awesome. We love Russillo. Chance to bring him on. Dan Duquette is coming on, former general manager of the Red Sox. Spring training's coming up. Chaim Bloom's in the crosshairs. Let's talk to a guy who's done it before, a guy who's been there. Dan Duquette's planning on coming on, I think, tomorrow. That's the plan. Again, Super Bowl week is hectic. Things get crazy. I never like to promise a guest until I know that they're in. But Russillo told me he's in. Dan Duquette told me he's in. They're coming on later this week. I wanted less of the backup tackles and less of the tight ends on, the Seahawks or whatever, and more of the people that you might be able, might care about. Max in Richmond. Oh, another text says, that's great how you related to Vermonters. Well, thank you. We try our best. Again, it's not easy to do this, but we've pulled it off successfully the last 2 years, so why not do it again? Max in Richmond says, aside from the interviews, what is Super Bowl week actually like when you go? It is insane. Super Bowl week is insane when you actually go to it. And look, I said, I loved it. I did it 4 times, and I felt like I had made it. I don't think I need to do it now. It is an absolute whirlwind. You fly across the country somewhere on Sunday. You instantly kind of check into the media center, get your spot on Radio Row, start scheduling the interviews. Monday night is Super Bowl opening night. That's tonight. What used to be called Super Bowl Media Day. It's, where Marshawn Lynch would say, I'm just here so I don't get fined, that kind of thing. So all the players are there to be interviewed. It's a huge fan event too. So that's tonight. Tuesday night is the media soiree. That's the fun night. You get one fun night as far as I'm concerned. It's Tuesday night media bash. You meet up with other media people around the country, free drinks and food, and they usually take you to some cool local landmark. I went to it in San Francisco. It was at an aquarium. I went to it in Houston. It was at a planetarium. In Minneapolis, it was at an amusement park inside the Mall of America. And I remember drinking and riding a roller coaster in the Mall of America. And then Atlanta, I don't remember where it was, but I remember we had fun. It was like it was like more of a convention center type thing, but it was a blast too. But you work 15 hours a day. You're on your feet every day. You're chasing around people. You do the shows. I'm exhausted. Like, I love doing it. Don't get me wrong, but it's not as fun. Like, I wasn't finding myself at the Maxim party. I didn't go to Gronk's party or Lee Steinberg's party. Other people I know did that kind of stuff. I did not. The best story that I have out of Radio Row in the 4 years that I've been was the Friday night in Minneapolis. I was leaving Saturday morning. I left at like 6 a.m. Saturday morning. Friday night in Minneapolis, when we were getting ready to leave the hotel, having drinks with Bruce Gradkowski, the old Bucks and Raiders quarterback, and having him drunkenly recite John Gruden play calls. That was the thing I remember most. I'm with a couple of different people. We're at the bar. Bruce Gradkowski's there. And all of a sudden, you're a couple gin and tonics in, and Bruce Gradkowski's out there going, red, right, red, seven, like some play calls like 20 seconds long. I'm like, how do NFL teams get plays off in time when they're this long? That's the best Radio Row story that I have. That was fun. And sitting next to Emmitt Smith and stealing John Clayton's little mini helmet. I did that too. Does your fiance know about your behavior at Radio Row? I have no behavior to hide from her. So drinking with Bruce Gradkowski is nothing to hide. Nate in Starksboro. Love the Radio Row at home idea. I didn't even know about Radio Row in the first place, so it's cool to hear about it. Also, give me a good reason to care about the Red Sox this year. We'll get to that, right? There's a lot of things to be interested in the Red Sox. Yeah, Radio Row is fun. You know, you go down there at its heyday. It's still very big, trust me. At its heyday, it was, 300 stations there. And then everybody descends on it, and all the superstars come in. Monday and Tuesday are kind of lighter days. Wednesday, everybody comes in for the game. And Wednesday through Friday is nuts. Like, I remember the first year I went, I was standing. Next to me was Terrell Owens. Across from me was Jim Harbaugh. Then was Gronk, and then was Richard Sherman behind me. Like, I was in the middle of those four people. T.O., Jim Harbaugh, Richard Sherman, and Gronk. I mean, that was pretty cool. It's a cool concept. Now, I never talked to all of those people. I talked to a lot of good people. But, again, do you need to hear me talk to some no-name comedian who's just walking around? Do you need to hear me talk to the backup tight end on the Browns? Probably not. John in Moncton says, interesting guest list. I appreciate who you are able to get on the air. I enjoy the questions you ask and the responses from guests. Well, thank you very much, John. Again, fun week ahead. Some things are still being finalized. We'll have all our usual people either on the show or on the podcast channel as too. Coach Brennan, Freddie Coleman, Tom Karen, Buster Olney. They're not getting bumped for this week also. They're all awesome. We love talking to them. So Radio Row is fun. Radio Row at home is also fun. And we might as well kick it off right now with a little bit of fun. How about our guy, Ross Tucker? He's calling in now. Ross Tucker is a former NFL offensive lineman. He played with the Patriots. He was teammates for a bit with Tom Brady. He out-beer chugged Tom Brady at one point. No, he didn't. Brady out-beer chugged him, as I remember the story correctly now. He's big in the media now, the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, and he's also hosted the Dan Patrick Show. So Ross Tucker is with us now. Ross, thank you for being with us. Kicking off Radio Row at home. How are you?
Of course, Brady. Doing great, man. Always good to talk with you.
Good to be with you here, closing in on another Super Bowl. I will get to Eagles-Chiefs momentarily, but I do want to start with some Patriot stuff since you played here and you spent some time with Tom Brady. He recently announced his retirement again. Are you buying this one as being for good?
Yeah, for sure. Yep. I don't know that it's 100%. But I would say 99.9 maybe. I don't know what happened last year. It kind of felt like it never felt right. It always kind of felt like it was rushed or unorthodox. It was just a unique situation a year ago. Because he retired last year and then came back, I just can't imagine he would have done that, Brady, on February 1st. If he thought there was a chance he'd play this year. I just don't think he wants to be that guy. I don't think he wants to be that guy that comes back twice, because then you're the butt of all the jokes, and it just seems kind of unprofessional at that point. So I think he made this decision with peace of knowing that, he doesn't really need or want to play football anymore.
I agree with you. I don't think he needs to play football anymore. I also don't think that Tom Brady was terrible. There are some people who look at it like Brady was awful in 2022. I certainly didn't see it that way. As someone who studies the whole league, what is your sense of what Brady had left?
Well, I thought it was the worst I've ever seen him play. So let's say that.
Yeah.
He was still a top 20 quarterback in the NFL. It's hard to separate how bad their O-line was, how bad their scheme was. He was not really put in a position to succeed. And so I kind of wondered if he realized that and thought maybe if he goes to the Raiders with Devontae Adams and Renfro and Waller and Josh Jacobs and he knows McDaniels, if maybe he wanted to give it one more shot somewhere else, but ultimately he decided, I think he just wants to be with his family, man. I think there's part of him that, I wouldn't be shocked if he played next year and he was a top 10 quarterback again. That wouldn't shock me at all, knowing him. But I just don't think he felt like he needed to prove anything. But I don't know, man. He hasn't had to prove anything for a long time, and he still was doing it.
From the old Patriots quarterback to the new Patriots quarterback in Mac Jones, obviously Mac was not in a great position to succeed this year either, but what is your overall assessment of where he is at coming out of year 2 right now?
Well, it's funny. There's a lot of similarities between those two in terms of this past season, because it's hard to separate Mac Jones from having Matt Patricia as his offensive coordinator and the impact that had on him. I feel like we will learn a lot more about Mac Jones this year, right? With Bill O'Brien, who's kind of a proven commodity. We're going to learn a lot more about just how good Mac Jones really is. And it's perfect timing for the Patriots, because at the end of this year, they'll have to decide whether to pick up his 5th-year option or whatever. It could go really one of 3 ways. He could improve, and they could feel great about him, pick up the 5th-year option. He could say the same, which would put them in a weird spot. I kind of feel like if he stays the same, or if he's worse, obviously, I don't think they will pick up the 5th-year option, and I think they'll start to explore other options at the quarterback position, which is kind of surprising given how good Mac was as a rookie.
There's kind of 2 levels of NFL contention. There's playoff contention and there's Super Bowl contention. How far do you think the Patriots are from each of those levels?
They're not far from playoff contention, and they will be a playoff contender next year. They'll be right there in the mix. Although their division is tough.
Yeah.
I think the Jets are going to get a good veteran quarterback. And with that, I think the Patriots are probably the worst team in the division. I mean, isn't that amazing, Brady? Yeah. After all those years, Super Bowl contention, they're far away.
Yeah.
They are far away. I mean, you think about Kansas City, Cincinnati, Buffalo. Doesn't really feel like the Patriots are even close to being at that level. So I would say pretty far away from Super Bowl contention.
Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman, with us here on the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV, also the host of the Ross Tucker football podcast. And I've seen him hosting the Dan Patrick Show before. He's everywhere and awesome at it. So let's turn a little bit to the Super Bowl with kind of an eye back on the Patriots. One of the stories of this Super Bowl is going to be the mobility of the quarterbacks. Jalen Hurts certainly is mobile. Patrick Mahomes is a mobile quarterback usually, although we're not quite sure what his ankle is going to be at this weekend. Mac Jones is fairly immobile. He can move around the pocket. He's shifty, but he's not really mobile. Do you think the Patriots are at a disservice or at a disadvantage by not having a more agile quarterback?
Yes, but I think Mac Jones is more agile than he gets credit for.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he needs to win sort of like how Joe Burrow is winning. I think he's as athletic or as agile as Joe Burrow. He needs to win like Brady won or Peyton Manning. The thing is like Brady's such an anomaly, but Manning had really good receivers like Marvin Harrison and Reggie Wayne and Dallas Clark. And Joe Burrow has, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd. Mac Jones does not have those guys. So I think in today's day and age, Brady, it's pretty tough to have a quarterback that's not mobile combined with a pedestrian receiving core. Boy, you're asking a lot of that quarterback and the O-line then.
We are still a few days away from the Super Bowl here, so there's time for more things to pop up in our next few days of coverage. But, Ross, as we sit here a few days out, what are you thinking is going to be the biggest key to the game?
Well, I think probably the health of the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Like how healthy are those receivers? How healthy is Patrick Mahomes? The Eagles come into this game really healthy. I mean, they have all 22 starters from the start of the year. I mean, that's unheard of.
Yeah.
And by the way, 18 of the 22 are Pro Bowl or Pro Bowl alternate players. It's just, so Brady, I grew up outside of Philly, and they never wanted me, right? I never played for them, but I grew up a fan, and I have never, ever seen a team like this. It's by far the best. This is definitely a better team than the one that beat the Patriots 5 years ago. Definitely. They have easily the best offensive line in the league. They probably have the best D-line in the league. I mean, they're third NFL history in sacks this year. They have the best wide receivers in franchise history. Probably the best corners in franchise history. The quarterback's an MVP candidate. I mean, they are loaded, and healthy. So I don't really see, barring turnovers, obviously, I don't really see a scenario whereby the Chiefs win unless Mahomes is just unbelievable, right? Like, there's no scenario where the Chiefs win unless Mahomes is magical. Here's the thing. Mahomes is magical a lot. I can't believe he was able to get that done against the Bengals, in the AFC Championship game, but he did. So that's the other thing too, right? Like, if you expect it to be a close game, and I kind of think it will be, how do you pick against Mahomes, who we've all seen make the critical play late in big games at least a dozen times? Hurts hasn't done that. Hurts hasn't been asked to do that. It's not really his fault. He might be able to do it. We don't really know. We know Mahomes can do it.
Ross, you come to us at a great time here in the calendar, not just Super Bowl week, but Valentine's Day is coming up. And for all the dudes out there, and you're out there listening, that screwed up the dinner reservation and missed it and are trying to scramble for something to do, you're here to save the day.
Well, I'm just telling you, I have said this for last couple of years to you, Brady. MyFrontPageStory.com, my buddy started the company, by far the best Valentine's Day gift ever. You literally talk to one of their writers for 5 minutes while you're driving to Dunkin' Donuts or whatever, or driving home from work. You tell them how great your significant other is. They write the most unbelievable story about her. Framed pictures of the two of you, maybe the kids. It looks like it's on the cover of the newspaper. And just to be able to say to her, honey, I want to do something different for you. I want to do something special. So I had a story written about you. Like, your wife will be like, what? You did what? What do you mean you had a story written about me? And then she reads it. Your wife will think like you came up with the idea. Like, you didn't just hear some ex-football player talking about it on the radio. Like, you went out of your way to find some unique Valentine's Day gift for her. And then when she reads the quotes about, I don't thank her enough for everything she does, like, she will cry. Like, I'm almost positive your wife will cry. MyFrontPageStory.com. Trust me, fellas, I would not steer you wrong here. I know Valentine's Day is important for a lot of reasons. MyFrontPageStory.com.
$100 dinner lasts you one day. MyFrontPageStory.com lasts a lifetime. Frame it on the wall. Keep it there forever. Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman, spent some time with the Patriots. Good perspective here on the Pats and the Super Bowl. Ross, we love talking to you. Enjoy the game in a few days, and we'll catch up with you down the road.
Absolutely, Brady. Thank you so much, as always, for having me. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate it as well. And I said, people, that Ross was the only one I was going to let come on and talk about a product. That was it. He was the only one, because I think MyFrontPageStory.com is actually a really unique idea, right? I didn't want to hear about, hey, here's this athlete for Doritos. Hey, you can get this athlete on and you can talk to him for 5 minutes. Make sure the last 2 minutes are about hybrid cars. I had no interest in any of that stuff this year. But Ross was the only one that I said he can come on and talk about his sponsorship for a minute, because that's actually an interesting idea. So there you go. MyFrontPageStory.com, as Valentine's Day is 8 days away. But Ross is the man. There's a reason why I love having him on. Okay? Good perspective on Tom Brady. good perspective on the Patriots. We're going to kind of get through this week, and then we're going to take all the audio that we've gotten, cut it all up, and kind of get back to a bunch of the individual points here as kind of sports hits a dead zone after the Super Bowl, right? Like once the Super Bowl ends, we're at NHL and NBA, more college hoops. So we'll have things to talk about, but that's when I kind of really want to get back to some of the stuff that these guests have said. But I love what he had to say about Mac, mobile quarterback. I mean, right, like Mac Jones is playing for his fifth-year option, similar to what Daniel Jones was playing for, and the Giants ended up declining it going into this year. So Mac Jones is this is a huge year for him. And, Ross's perspective on that was great. Text says, Brady knew it was over. Tom Brady knew it was over. Well, he said that it was the right time to retire. He said that today on Fox Sports Radio. So, and I believe it's for real as well. Now, Brady also said he's not going to start broadcasting until 2024 with Fox. So I guess there's another year in there potentially, for him to come back without it impacting his future career. But I still think it's for real. Good stuff from Ross Tucker. Love having him on. When we come back, so CBS News update, I'll talk to you about UVM's win over Albany, but I got a thing with my barber this weekend. I need your all help. I'll tell you about it next.
96.1 WDEV FM Warren, 96.5 W243 AT Berry, 98.3 W252 CU Montpelier, AM 550 WDEV Waterbury.
This is CBS News on the Hour, your home for original reporting.
I'm Monica Ricks in New York. Search crews are desperate to find survivors in Turkey and Syria crushed by buildings in an overnight earthquake. Ismail Al-Abdullah is with a relief group there.
Our teams responded to all the sites and the buildings, and many families now are under the rubble. Our team's trying to save them.
And more help is coming. CBS's Cameron McCormick is at the Pentagon.
State Department spokesman Ned Price says the assistance will likely be long-term as the devastation becomes more apparent.
The tragic reality is that the death toll of this earthquake is likely to continue to climb in the coming days.
The U.S. assistance will begin with 2 American search and rescue teams.
It is our fervent hope that the rescue and recovery effort is able to save as many lives, to pull people from the rubble.
After that, the U.S. will provide financial assistance, he says, to rebuild the country.
People living near a train derailment in Ohio could be in danger as crews continue a controlled release of dangerous chemicals. Governor Mike DeWine.
Concern, the railroad has a serious concern, which they can express to you about an explosion with one or more of these cars. They describe an explosion as potentially catastrophic.
President Biden plans to talk about raising the debt ceiling tomorrow night at his State of the Union address and tell lawmakers that it shouldn't be used as a bargaining chip. But House Speaker Kevin McCarthy is not having it.
President Biden wants Congress to raise the debt limit yet again, without a single sensible change to how government spends your hard-earned money.
If Congress doesn't raise the debt limit, the U.S. will default for the first time ever. President Biden says China now understands the U.S. position on spy balloons.
As he returned from Camp David, where he worked through the weekend on his State of the Union speech, the president was asked if the balloon incident further weakens U.S.-China relations. He said it does not.
We're not going to back off. We did the right thing. And there's not a question of weakening or strengthening. It's just the reality.
Mr. Biden said it was always his intent to shoot the balloon down once it entered U.S. airspace. He says the Pentagon urged against it until the airship was over water.
At CBS's Stephen Portnoy. Police have arrested a couple and thwarted a possible attack on the power grid in Baltimore. CBS's Steve Futterman.
Law enforcement officials say the 2 suspects, Brandon Russell and Sarah Clandaniel, hope to shut down the power in the middle of winter. Eric Barron is the U.S. attorney in Maryland.
Clandaniel and Russell conspired and took steps to shoot multiple electrical substations.
Thomas Obozinski is with the FBI.
The accused were not just talking. He described attacking the power transformers as the greatest thing somebody can do.
They're described as neo-Nazi extremists. This is CBS News.
Do you know what people see when they Google you? Search engines don't always get it right, and when they're wrong, it's your reputation on the line. So what do you do when you don't agree with your search results? Call Reputation Defender at 800-401-6681. Reputation Defender by Norton is one of the most trusted names in online reputation repair. We have over a decade of experience in fixing people's search results, and we can help you too. Using cutting-edge approaches, Reputation Defender pushes unflattering information down to lower pages of your search results, where few people ever look. We also promote the good stuff so that it rises to the top, letting you put your best foot forward. Your good name is too valuable to leave to the whims of a Google algorithm. You owe it to yourself to take control with Reputation Defender. Visit www.reputationdefender.com or call 800-401-6681 for free advice on your situation. 800-401-6681. That's 800-401-6681.
Chances are you're paying much more this year than last for your auto insurance.
Between 2022 and 2023, we saw just under a 14% increase.
Bankrate insurance analyst Kate DeVenter says claims have simply gotten more expensive.
The general inflationary economy, the cost of parts and labor, materials, the cost of medical care in the aftermath of an accident.
DeVenter says the national average cost for full coverage auto insurance is now about $2,000 a year. Peter King, CBS News.
The FAA and NTSB are now looking into a near plane collision in Austin, Texas. A FedEx cargo plane and a Southwest passenger jet barely avoided crashing on a runway this weekend. The FedEx plane was only about 150 feet from the ground when it was ordered not to land. No one was hurt, but a similar incident happened just weeks ago at JFK. Monica Ricks, CBS News.
By government. Make your opinion heard by texting onto the Brady Farkas Show at 802-585-3026.
Now it's back to the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV AM, FM, and WDEVradio.com.
Welcome back in, Brady Farkas Show, right here on WDEV AM and FM and WDEVradio.com. Thanks to Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman, for stopping by. That interview already is up on our podcast channel at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the WDEVradio.com. We'll also check in with Bobby Marks, the former NBA executive, talk a little Kyrie Irving, but mainly focus on the Celtics tonight. They're taking on the Pistons, by the way, and they still have the best record in the NBA. So Bobby Marks will be with us at 6:30. I want to get to UVM hoops here in a couple of minutes, but I got to tell you about the odd position I ended up in with regards to my barber on Saturday. So I went and got my hair cut on Saturday afternoon, right? It's a freezing cold day. You all know this. I was out there. So my barber was like an artist on Saturday. Really, really dedicated to his craft. Took a while to do everything with my hair and beard, etc. He was like an artist. The minute I got home, I undid basically all of his work. Let me tell you about how we got there. I feel bad about this situation, frankly. And I want to know if anybody else ever finds themselves in a similar one. So I go to this great barbershop, and I love this barbershop. I love the people who work there. I love the vibe of where it is. They're great professionals, do awesome work. But again, I ended up in this weird position the other day. So let me tell you this up front, because it will help shape the story. I have a pretty hard and fast rule. If I have short hair, I will not have a full beard. Like, I hate the idea of having short hair on the sides and the top, and then all of a sudden there's a bushy beard there that connects to that. I have no desire for. So if I am getting my hair cut, I will always shave. Always. I might leave a little bit of stubble or something, but if I have short hair, I'm having short facial hair. If I have long hair, I'm going to have a beard. That's just the way it is. That is a pretty hard and fast rule for me. So, I grow them out at the same time. I get them short at the same time. So I go into the barber shop and I sit down and I'm thinking that, like usual, the barber's going to ask you like, hey, what are you looking for? And I told him I wanted a 2 on the sides and back with the clippers and scissors on the top, right? I like to leave the top a little bit longer. So 2 on the sides and back, scissors on the top. All right, great. So we're going through, hair's getting cut, feels good. My neck's getting trimmed. Everything's feeling good. He gets to the area of my sideburns and where the beard is. And I'm thinking now he's going to ask me, hey, what do you want to do here? Right? Like I'm waiting for him to ask me, what do you want to do here? Never asks me. He pulls out the straight razor. He's got the warm shaving cream. He's got the nice edges. And all of a sudden I realize, okay, he's never going to ask me what we're doing here. So he's got the tiny short razor, like straight out of like the 1950s barber shops. And I'm like, this guy's an artist. He's edging me up. He's going down the hairline, edging me up perfectly. I can feel the razor on my face. And he's edging that up. So now he's like, this takes like 15 minutes, right? Like my haircuts usually take like 20 minutes tops. The beard edge up took 15. He's going on the neck now. He's getting that edged up. He's on the cheek. He's getting that edged up. By the time we're done, he's done with both sides of the face. He does the mustache. He cleans that up a bit. So he doesn't shave off my beard, which is what I would have wanted. He edges it up perfectly. I look in the mirror. Finally, we're done. And he kind of looks at me like, hey, what do you think? And I'm like, I don't have the heart to tell him. Like, this is not what I wanted. Like, I want this beard gone. I want these sideburns gone. But he's just gone to 15 minutes of trouble. He's used the little tiny utensils, the little tiny instruments. He's perfected his craft on this. I feel guilty. I'm like, if you had just asked me 15 minutes ago what I wanted, I would have saved you all this work. You could have just lopped these bad boys right off. I want the sideburns trimmed. I want the beard gone. The only thing I want to leave, I want the mustache gone. The only thing I want to keep at all is a little stubble on the chin. That's it. He has kept the exact same beard that I had before, but it just looks way better. Like it looks way better. It's not scraggly. It's still long, but it's not scraggly. I feel guilty. He's like, how do you like it? I'm like, well, looks great. And it does look great, but it's not what I wanted. So the minute I get home, I shave off the beard. And I trim the sideburns then myself because I got to bring them up now at this point. Right? He's left the sideburns long, so basically the hair on the side can connect to the beard. The minute I got home, shaved the beard, shaved the mustache, got rid of the sideburns. I didn't have the heart to tell him. Now, this could have been avoided, right? At the very beginning, I could have laid out, hey, 2 on the sides and back, scissors on top, sideburns ditched. I could have easily told him that. So that's on me. He also could have easily told me when he got to the sideburns, like, hey, what are you looking to do here? Miscommunication between me and the barber. I felt real guilty about this because this was not like your generic corporate barbershop where they just churn you in and out. This wasn't that. You know, like you're in and out in 10 minutes or less. This was like precision hair cutting. I was on that chair for 35 minutes. It doesn't take that much work for me to get a 2 on the sides and back. The majority of the time I'm on the chair was him with the beard and the short razor and the good shaving cream. I felt horrible. He's like, he's an artist. And I'm like, I'm going to get rid of this the minute I get home. And that's exactly what I did. I tipped him well because I felt so bad. On one hand, I tipped him because I felt bad. On the other hand, I shouldn't have tipped him because he never asked me what I wanted to do and gave me something that I didn't want. But does this ever happen to anybody else? Miscommunication with the barber? Because that's where I was at. I'm like, I don't know how we got here, but we're here. And now I got to change it all up. So I felt like I was living in a Seinfeld episode. Right? Where like you're getting a great haircut, but it's not what you want and you're afraid to speak up about it. I feel like I'm living in a Seinfeld episode. You remember this episode? They had one like it where Jerry's getting the haircut from Uncle Enzo and he doesn't like it and he wants to switch over to Gino, the barber, and he can't figure out a way to do it. And they watch Edward Scissorhands. Uncle Enzo. Now, this guy is much better than Uncle Enzo. He just didn't talk to me about what I wanted. So we ended up in a weird spot. All right. It is the Brady Farkas Show. You can get in on barbershop's etiquette here momentarily, but I do want to get to UVM. I love when teams in sports do exactly what they're supposed to do. There is almost nothing more satisfying and nothing more exciting than when a team does exactly what it's supposed to do. That was UVM men's basketball on Saturday afternoon against Albany. Catamounts won that game by 19 points. Final score was 87-68. They were up by as many as 34, I believe. I love when teams do what they're supposed to do, and that's the sign of a good team. Good teams do what they're supposed to do. I told you on Friday, UVM should beat Albany by no less than 15 points. I said if they beat them by less than 15 points, I'm going to be disappointed. You're up by 30 plus. You win by 19. You did what you're supposed to do. I come in today thrilled. Right? Bad teams get beat. Mediocre teams win occasionally. Like they lose when they're supposed to. They drop a bad one. Good teams do what they're supposed to do. I just don't. I don't like when teams can't hit the mark. UVM's hitting the mark. They dominated that game in every single way, start to finish. They put up nearly 90 points. They could have put up 95 if they had really kept on it here. They pulled off the gas. They started out the game up 7-0, 5 players in double figures. They hit 13 threes. They shot nearly 50% from 3. They out-rebounded Albany. They were 2-1 in the assist-to-turnover ratio. They did just about everything well. That right there, that's a performance you can hang your hat on. And if you are a UVM fan, and you see now that this team is 7-2 in conference play, and you want to get on board again, that's the kind of performance that gets you on board. You come out, you do exactly what you're supposed to do. Again, good teams do what they're supposed to do. Bad teams lose. Mediocre teams let teams hang around and then drop a couple they're not supposed to. Good teams get out early, and they bury you. And that's what Vermont did. And that's where they're starting to trend to. Now, it wasn't always easy against UMBC the game before, so I get it. They have had some moments too. But when they are fully healthy and have everybody at their disposal, they are unbeaten in this conference. They lose to New Hampshire without Hurley. They lose to UMass Lowell without Finn Sullivan. But when they have been fully healthy, they are unbeaten in this league. They'd be 7-0 at full strength. Vermont is the best team in this league. They're not a threat to win in the NCAA tournament, but they are absolutely a threat to win this league in the regular season. They're absolutely a threat to win this league again at the conference tournament level. And they're starting to play really well, right? 3 of their last 4 games, they've hit at least 11 threes. And in addition to just doing what you're supposed to do on a team level, they're doing what we've asked them to do on an individual level. What did we say for weeks? Finn Sullivan and Dylan Penn need to step up offensively. They need to carry the load. And that's exactly what they're doing now. Finn Sullivan gets 19 points to lead the way on Saturday. Dylan Penn gets 17. He had 15 in the first half. He barely needed to even play in the second half. Otherwise, he would have had 20 for sure. Like, that's what you want. That's what you want. You're a veteran-laden team, and your veterans are stepping up. You had 5 players in double figures. Every one of them is a senior or older. Deloney gets double figures. Cam Gibson gets double figures. Veretto gets double figures. Sullivan and Penn all get double figures. Ding, ding, ding. That's what you want. Your veteran players making plays. Your 2 best offensive players carrying the load. You get out to a 7-0 lead, and you never look back. I mean, Vermont, I know Albany's bad. And some of you want to discount the win. It's just Albany. Yeah, you know what? You beat them by 20. You beat them on the road in an unfamiliar surrounding, in a junior college gym. Anytime, anywhere, you went on the road and you won that game. You won it handily. I give you credit for that. I absolutely give you credit for that. They played well. Really, really well. And they're going to take on Maine on Wednesday. It's a Maine team that has a bad record, but it's a Maine team that's beaten I want to say has beaten Binghamton and has beaten UMass Lowell. So it's no gimme. It's a long trip up to Orono. It's no gimme, but they got a chance to go to 8-2 in the conference coming up on Wednesday night. By the way, huge win for the UVM women. Also, I want to shout them out. Albany has run that conference for a long time. Albany and Maine have run the America East Conference on the women's side. UVM women win that game by 4. They win it at home. They beat Albany. They get 3 players in double figures. Elisa Kresge's got that program cooking right now. And I think there are some people who have said, hey, look, they've got a good record, but they haven't beaten Albany yet. Well, guess what? They've beaten Albany and Maine now. So they are absolutely a threat to win the conference tournament as well. Elisa Kresge's got her team rolling. And we have never had this situation in the time that I've been here, but it is a very realistic possibility now that both the UVM men and the UVM women go to the tournament in the same year. That is absolutely a possibility. We have not seen it in the now 7 seasons that I have been in Vermont, but it's absolutely a possibility. And I've seen it before. When I lived and worked in Albany, I was a part of multiple years where the men and women went to the tournament at the same time. That is a really cool vibe. And that is a really healthy athletic department. When you can get both your men and women's teams to the NCAA tournament, that should be the goal now. Now, it's going to be hard for both of them to do it. Maine and Albany are very good. UVM might not get the home game or might not get the conference tournament title game at home, but they absolutely can win it. They've won at Maine. They've beaten Albany at home. This is a cool time right now. Cool time right now. UVM men, I told you last week I was getting that feeling, and it's growing. That feeling is growing, and the UVM women are inspiring some confidence as well. One more thing on the men, by the way. We had talked, a good amount last week about kind of the philosophical change that the Catamounts have done offensively, right? Dylan Penn playing more point guard, Finn Sullivan playing more shooting guard. Here was Penn talking about what that change has done for him.
It gives me a chance to push the ball in transition and really attack downhill. I feel like that's one of the areas where I can really thrive in, and I feel like that also makes the defense collapse, and it gives me a chance to hit guys like Finn, guys like Cam, guys like AD, guys that can really shoot the ball, stretch the floor. Yeah, it gives me an opportunity to attack downhill early, make the defense play me, and then I can kick it out and get the ball to other guys that can score.
Yeah, I think this has been a huge adjustment for this team. We called for it earlier in the season. It's what I thought it was going to look like. Credit to UVM for recognizing that it's what works. Dylan Penn talks about when I have the ball in my hands early in the shot clock, when I have the ball early, I get a chance to get momentum, get downhill, and get to the bucket. He does that great. And then if they're going to help, then I can kick out to other guys who shoot the ball well. Hurley, Gibson, Deloney, Sullivan, and now those guys are shooting well. That is a big deal. That's a big-time offensive change. So I think that's huge. I think it's absolutely huge, and it's been one of the differences for this team. UVM is shooting well, right? Everything is interrelated. Okay? Listen, follow the chain of events here. Dylan Penn plays point guard. He therefore scores easier, right? He's got the ball in his hands, top of the key, can go either side, can feel it out, has the momentum. He scores easier. That's great. Guys help. He kicks out to shooters. Well, now, because people are collapsing on Dylan Penn, those jump shots get much easier. Finn Sullivan's got a better look. TJ Hurley has a better look. Cam Gibson has a better look. So now you're creating better shot opportunities, more makes. Boom. That's great. Now you're able to saunter back on defense and force the other team to play offense in the half court. Everything's related. Dylan Penn creates better offense. You're now hitting more jumpers. That helps your defense. You want to know why this team is now 7-2 in league play and why the last 4 games they've been rolling? Well, that's a huge reason why. Everything helps one another. But I really do think that Dylan Penn playing point guard more has given them just better offensive freedom and given them better offensive ability. Gary says, good points on the Barber, Brady. You're no spring chicken. Things are probably starting to thin up there. What does that have to do with my beard? Is it just any chance to take a shot at me? Is that what we're at here? I got a little bit of thinning up there. I'm not afraid to admit it. Well, I'm afraid to admit it, but I'm not afraid to tell you about it. So I get the scissors on the top. I leave the scissors long. I leave it longer on the top to hide some of that thinning. Get the scissors on the top. The sides and the back go shorter. And then when I have shorter sides and back, I don't want a long beard. Again, long hair, full beard. Short hair, no beard. That's what I wanted. The barber did a great job at trimming up the beard, but it's not what I wanted. I just felt guilty afterwards. I couldn't tell him that. I couldn't bring myself to tell him that. He had worked so hard at it. It is the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV, AM and FM, and WDEVradio.com. All right, let's get to a quick Who's Saying What.
Whoa. What did he say?
They have an expensive but totally unimpressive receiving core, and they have absolute best, at most charitable, the 9th best quarterback in their own conference.
They really said that?
Every damn thing is politics and race, and I'm losing my mind over it.
It's time for Who's Saying What on the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV AM, FM, and WDEVradio.com.
All right, Who's Saying What as we are on our first day of Super Bowl week coverage here. The Chiefs and the Eagles obviously playing each other on Super Bowl Sunday. Which team has more pressure on them this weekend? Well, former Patriot Rob Ninkovich has an opinion.
I think it's Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City. Like, when you have that expectation to being the next team dynasty that gets there every single year, like, you just can't get there and lose these games. Like, these are the ones that you have to go and win them. So you look at Patrick Mahomes and what they did in the previous Super Bowl when they were beat and they didn't have an offensive line. Well, what did they do? They went out and made sure that they rebuilt that offensive line. They gave him more protection. They helped him in certain areas to help him be protected. And now they're back in it. So, Jalen Hurts, he's young. He's gone farther than anyone expected this season. I mean, if you look back this year to last year to this year, I mean, he's grown leaps and bounds. Way ahead of schedule. So if you're the Eagles, you're like, man, we're in bonus time.
See, I disagree. I think the Eagles are under more pressure. And the reason is because the Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes. Now, Ninko says the Chiefs have more pressure because they have Mahomes and they have the weight of expectation on them. I look at it the other way. Hey, the Eagles, we don't know if they're going to get back, right? We don't know if they're going to get back. Like, this is the chance that's in front of them. This is the chance that they have to take. If I'm the Chiefs, I got to be thinking, or if I'm a Chiefs fan, I'm thinking, hey, Mahomes has already won one. So he's got that pressure off his back. And now I'm thinking to myself, I got to think I can get back again with Mahomes, right? Like, I think it's more of a foregone conclusion that Mahomes gets back than Hurts. Now, the NFC is not as good, and the NFC doesn't have as many good quarterbacks. So there's certainly a chance next year for the Eagles to be back here. That absolutely is realistic given the state of the NFC. But I just feel better about Mahomes' chances of, if you said to me, which quarterback has a better chance of getting back to the Super Bowl again in their career, wouldn't we all say Mahomes? So if Mahomes has a better chance of getting back, I feel less inclined to say that there's that the urgency is greater for the Chiefs. I think the urgency is greater for the Eagles. We do not know what their future looks like. Right? They made a lot of moves. They made some trades at the deadline, guys that are on expiring contracts. They traded they traded picks to go get A.J. Brown. A little harder to replenish in the draft. I think the Chiefs have a better chance of getting back here just by virtue of having Mahomes. So if you are more of a lock to be back in the future, then I don't think that there's a huge amount of pressure on you. Again, they've already won one. This core of Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce has already won a title. So there's not that pressure on them. The Eagles are the ones who got to look at it and say, man, we got to take it now because I don't know if we'll be back. Again, Super Bowl Sunday, though, is on Sunday. We continue on our Radio Row at Home coverage. Biggest guests in sports entertainment. Does not have to just be football. And we'll pivot next to the NBA. The Celtics are in first place in the Eastern Conference. They have the best record in the NBA, but they haven't been perfect lately. What do they need as the trade deadline approaches? And what do we make of the Kyrie Irving situation? Former NBA executive Bobby Marks. He's with us next here on the Brady Farkas Show on DEV.
Hi, this is Emily McKenna, and I'm here to remind you that Central Vermont Home Health and Hospice is open for business to serve Central Vermonters of all ages with a wide array of acute medical needs in the safety, comfort, and privacy of home. CVHHH provides medically necessary skilled nursing and therapy care, social work support, and aid services to residents of 23 communities in Washington and Orange counties. In addition, we provide maternal and child health care and long-term care support, plus low-cost foot care clinics and free bereavement support groups. Central Vermont Home Health and Hospice is your local community home care provider. Our number one goal is to bring the right care to you where and when you want it. It is our mission to care for anyone who needs it, regardless of their insurance status or their ability to pay for care. This is our promise to you. This community is the bedrock of CVHHH, and we are proud of our roots in Central Vermont. Today and every day, Central Vermont Home Health and Hospice is here for you. To learn more about our services or to send us a question about care, visit cvhhh.org.
Radio Vermont Group Director of Digital Marketing, Nathan Wright, on the Radio Vermont Group Digital Marketing Experience.
What we like to do here at the Radio Vermont Group is give local businesses the full marketing experience. So what we do is we go into individual businesses, we talk to the owners and the marketing team, and we see where their pain points are or where they're looking to grow. Based on that, we come up with a custom plan that best fits their needs. A lot of people think that digital marketing is a one-size-fits-all, but when you really get down to the nuts and bolts, each company is different. Where a hardware store might need to reach contractors or tradespeople or homeowners, other businesses like hairstylists might want to be reaching a different demographic, such as younger people or people closer to where their businesses are.
To learn more about digital advertising with the Radio Vermont Group, including samples of our work, go to rvgdigital.com.
Giving everything you've got on every possession, working with and supporting your team at every turn, treating each team member with respect, making sure you give your best every time. This is the essence of high school sports. It's also what we believe at Nelson Ace Hardware. At Nelson's, each team member gives their all and does their best for every customer. This is Bob Nelson of Nelson Ace Hardware. Linda and I appreciate not only your support of Nelson Ace Hardware, but your support of local area sports as well. Enjoy listening to the game, and remember, life is challenging, so play hard.
Winter in Vermont can seem idyllic, but for those struggling to heat their homes and feed their families, it can be cold and long. Once again, the Radio Vermont Group is partnering with Capstone Community Action to help our neighbors in need, and we're asking for your help. Media coverage is underwritten in part by
Ladder One Grill in the historic firehouse in Barrie. Gifford Medical Center, caring for you for life. Woodbury Mountain Toys, a fixture on State Street in Montpelier since 1991. Stowe Beverage, Mountain Road in Stowe. And Nelson Ace Hardware, tools, garden supplies, home decor, and household items on Main Street in Barrie.
The Radio Vermont Group urges you to help fuel your neighbors this winter. Go to fuelyourneighbors.org to donate today. Even the smallest donation can help.
This is David Goodman. Join me every Wednesday at 1 o'clock for the Vermont Conversation, brought to you by vtdigger.org, Vermont's nonprofit news source. I'll talk with national and local change makers from the worlds of politics, social and racial justice, science, education, and the environment who are having an impact on our daily lives. You can also hear the Vermont Conversation at vtdigger.org or sign up for our podcasts. Join me and take part in the Vermont Conversation Wednesdays at 1 here on WDEV.
Want Brady to hear your opinion on the sports stories of the day? Text in at 802-585-3026.
Now it's back to the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV AM, FM, and WDEVradio.com.
Welcome back in. Brady Farkas Show right here on WDEV, AM and FM, WDEVradio.com. Steve in Fayston says that my story about the hair in the barber shop is killing him. So, well, next time I see Steve in person, we'll have a good laugh about it. I see Steve frequently out and about, so we'll have a good laugh about it. Gary says, Brady, I think you're right. The Eagles have more pressure on them. As Ross Tucker said, they're 100% healthy. How does that happen? That's a great point also. Like, the Eagles have all 22 starters from opening day available for the Super Bowl. That never happens. Like, that never, ever happens. So if you have a season where you have had basically the best injury luck you can have, you have to capitalize on it, right? Because you never know what's going to happen next year. You could look at it next year, and the Eagles could end up just like the 49ers, and their season could be over, right? You lose your starting quarterback, and your season could be done. You look at it like, I'm trying to think of other teams that lost their quarterbacks for long periods of time, and they were just derailed, right? Aaron Rodgers a couple of years ago when he was hurt for the Packers, they win 4 games or whatever. The Seahawks, Russell Wilson misses 3 games last year. They go 1-2, I think, or they go 1-3 in 4 games, and their season shot. Like, you never know. Then if you mention, look at the Patriots, right? For as bad as they were, look, they were so injured on the offensive line that you couldn't overcome that. That could be the Eagles next year. You have no idea. If you have this kind of health and you're fortunate enough to have this kind of health, you've got to capitalize on it. All right, the Boston Celtics are taking on the Pistons tonight. They'll do so a half game ahead of Denver right now for the best record in the NBA. That game's about 25 minutes from now for the Celtics taking on Detroit. Detroit's one of the worst teams in the NBA. Also, the Kyrie Irving trade from the Nets is official now, sent to Dallas for a couple of players, Dorian Finney-Smith, Spencer Dinwiddie, a couple of draft picks also. Breaking down everything now with us on the Brady Farkas Show is Bobby Marks. He's the front office insider for the NBA on ESPN. He's also the former assistant general manager, of those said Brooklyn Nets. He's with us now. Bobby, thank you for being with us. Thanks for taking some time with us here on this Super Bowl week. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Good. I appreciate you being with us. I want to talk about the Celtics, but let's start with the obvious, and let's start with Kyrie Irving. What do you make of the deal that Brooklyn ultimately got, and what do you make of this situation in general with Kyrie right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think considering the circumstances of a player asking to be traded less than a week from the deadline and his prior track record, whether it be in Cleveland, Boston, and Brooklyn in the last 4 years, they probably maximized as much as they could as far as draft picks and Spencer Dinwiddie and Dorian Finney-Smith here, and it still keeps this roster competitive. It's not, it's not in a tear down mode. And I just think it's going to be interesting as far as Kyrie in Dallas, what the next contract's going to be to look like, the pairing with Luka. But I understand it certainly from the Nets perspective.
From Dallas's perspective, I mean, they're obviously taking a risk. Any team who acquired Kyrie was taking a risk. But do you worry about Kyrie having a negative impact on Luka if you're the Mavs?
Well, it depends on how long term that risk is going to be. Is it for the next 4 months or is it for the next 3 years? I think that's the big thing. I think the Dallas will have, they're not obligated to sign him. I know what they traded, they're not obligated to sign him to a new contract in the offseason. They can basically kind of wash their hands clean and kind of go in a different direction here. So just because you gave up the first and the 2 players here doesn't mean that all of a sudden Kyrie Irving's going to get a 4-year, $200 million contract. So I think it's an audition. It's an audition for the next, the next 3 or 4 months is an audition for what the next contract is going to be.
It's interesting too, because Kyrie reportedly wanted, a 4-year deal with the Nets. That surprised me because when he was with the Celtics, he was talking about retiring early and he didn't want to play into his mid to late 30s and his body was beat up. I thought Kyrie was going to be out of the league at 32. He's already 30. It kind of surprised me that he wanted such a long-term deal.
Yeah, I mean, I think anytime you can make $200 million over 4 years and have financial security, I think that's always the goal. I just have a hard time seeing where he would get that this offseason. He wasn't going to likely get it from Brooklyn. I don't see a team like the Lakers. We'll see what happens in Dallas. I would say unlikely because giving him a 4-year deal would basically have him on the roster when Luka could become a free agent. I don't think the Mavericks want to put themselves in a position.
Your colleague at ESPN, Stephen A. Smith, said this morning that maybe Kevin Durant could be on the move and thinks that the Celtics could be in play for him, I presume, around a package centered around Jaylen Brown. Are you buying that as realistic? Would you even do that if you were the Celtics?
Well, I would be surprised that in the next 3 days, Kevin Durant has to be traded. I think this is probably more of a discussion in June and July as far as what happens with him, what happens this season, what does Brooklyn do in the next 3 days? If there's another deal to be made here, I would be. I mean, I understand the speculation now because Irving is traded here, but I would be surprised that all of a sudden, even if he did become asked to be traded, that all of a sudden the Nets are picking up the phone, calling teams, looking for the best trade package here. I think that's, as I said, it's a conversation to have in the off season here. But let's face it. I mean, Kevin Durant's an All-NBA player. He's a top 3 player in the NBA. He's a better player than Jaylen Brown, and you have him for 3 years, right? Jaylen Brown's going to be a free agent in 2024. That's the reality of the situation here. That what we've seen of Kevin Durant this year warrants a lot in return going back to Brooklyn here. But as I said, that's probably a conversation that we're having in June.
Bobby Marks, front office insider to the NBA for ESPN, former assistant general manager of those Nets. And now let's turn entirely to the Celtics. They do have the best record in the NBA. They're a half game ahead of Denver for that title right now, but they've kind of stubbed their toes a bit lately. Kind of an odd loss to Phoenix over the weekend. As the trade deadline approaches, non-Kevin Durant, do you think they need something, or is this just kind of a normal rough patch?
Yeah, I mean, it's a long season. 82 games is a long time. I think you don't want to, if you're going to do anything, you're not going to do anything with your core players here, which is, your top 8 or top 9 players. I just think it's everybody likes the trade deadline, and I think everyone likes putting trades together. But you look at this roster, it's a process of elimination. Like, who are you trading? You're not trading your main guys. I don't know about Peyton Pritchard or Grant Williams or guys like that. I mean, you've got some trade exceptions that you can go out and do a deal, maybe boost up your front court. Maybe give yourself a little bit more depth here. You've got some draft picks in the future that we saw last year in the Derek White trade that you can go out and move a deal. But this team is a lot different than we were last February. This is not a team that needs to have an overhaul here. So if you can make a tweak or two and it doesn't cost you anything substantial, I think certainly you're looking at that.
Anything going to be available, you think, on the buyout market? We always talk about it. I remember 5 years ago clamoring for the Celtics to go after Andrew Bogut on that thing. Anybody going to be available on the buyout market that could be of use to them, particularly in the front court?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting just because there's not many sellers right now. So, who, as far as from a buyout perspective, we'll certainly keep an eye on what happens in Charlotte as far as with maybe Mason Plumlee and Kelly Oubre, players like that, if there's no deal for either one. Houston's another team, but there's no players on expiring contracts that's worth considering a buyout market. I think the buyout market's fun to talk about because usually it's veterans who are at one time all-stars are now out there. But I remember a couple years ago, everybody got wrapped up that Brooklyn went out and got LaMarcus Aldridge and Blake Griffin. Right. Yeah. And it resulted in them losing in the second round of the playoffs here. So I don't think the buyout market is as lucrative as it probably once was.
It's such a double-edged sword, right? We talk about load management and players missing games, but then, if they play too much, like Tatum did last year and is exhausted in the playoffs, we're wondering why he didn't sit more earlier in the season. With where Tatum is at now and the minutes that he's playing and the wrist issue that he has, do you think Tatum should be playing, I'm not saying less games, but less minutes per game here? Because I feel like he could benefit from some rest.
Well, that's what we're going to keep an eye on, right? So we've got 25 to 30 games left in this season. That's why I said if there's a deal out there, maybe you can get another wing, which is hard to do, and maybe you lessen his minutes and everything. I think I think when you get to the playoffs, the goal is to be fresh, right? And I think we've seen certainly in Toronto in prior years, when you max out minutes during the regular season, it eventually comes back and haunts you a little bit here.
What do you think of the overall depth of the Eastern Conference? Because for years it was that the West, was so much better and so much deeper than the East. The East certainly has gotten a lot better. What do you think overall, of the Eastern Conference here as we trend towards the playoffs?
Well, I think there's some separation from where Boston is and everyone else. But I think, you look at 2, 3, 4, and 5, whether it be Philly, Milwaukee, Brooklyn, Cleveland. Even some of the play-in teams, which is Atlanta and maybe even Washington. I think that's deep. It really is. It's a little bit different than the Western Conference, where there's so much, there's so much parity in there here. But this is probably as deep as a conference that we've seen.
So many years for you in the NBA before you got to ESPN. What's the go-to story you tell people at cocktail parties? What's the story you end up repeating all the time when people talk to you like I am now?
That I went to the Kardashian-Humphries wedding in 2012.
Oh, really? How was that? Was everybody at the Nets invited? Were you special invite only? Tell me about this one.
I think my wife got a bigger thrill out of it than I did. She's a big People magazine fan. So, yeah, I think she got a big kick out of it.
Oh, man, that is a good one. And I remember real quick, we spoke a while back, and you told me about how far the NBA has come in terms of like the daily transaction logs.
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember the exact story, but when you were doing it.
Yeah, when I first started in '95, Twitter didn't exist, and we were basically just getting computers going. Laptops and all that stuff, but there was no, Woj bomb. Basically, we had there was a computer system in a room. It was called Lotus Notes, and basically every morning and at night we would check based on if there was transactions during the day, and that's basically how we found if a player was signed or a player was traded through this computer system.
Last question. You do a lot of the front office inside and cap, understanding the cap and all that. Really, the NBA salary cap feels like it's studying hieroglyphics. Why can't it be easier like baseball? Like in baseball, at least I understand, hey, okay, 141 million means 141 million. Here we've got bird rights and escalators and trade exceptions. Yeah. It's too complicated, Bobby.
Yeah, I think if they eliminate saying there's no trade rules, then we would see probably more baseball type trades when you're trading a player and you're going to pay $30 million of his salary in the deal, and you don't have to match. Everything has to match, right, for the majority as far as from a contract standpoint, and everything has. Yes, there is a lot of different nuances to it. I guess I've been doing it a long time, so it's a little bit more easy and that's my goal, is to, when there's a trade that happens or a transaction, to make it a little bit easier for the person out there who's watching or reading to kind of understand that.
Bobby Marks, former front office executive with the Nets, attendee of the Chris Humphries and Kardashian wedding a decade ago, and now you can check him out on ESPN, Front Office Insider. Bobby, we appreciate the time as always. Thank you.
You got it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Bobby Marks with us here on our Radio Row at Home special. That was the Chris Humphries and Kim Kardashian wedding, 2011 to 2013. But they were technically married 2 years, only lasted 72 days of actual marriage. So there you go. There was a fact I didn't know, that the team executive got to go to the wedding. So that's good stuff there. But Bobby Marks is awesome, right? And look, I'm not afraid to admit this, right? Like I used to think that as a host, I had to know absolutely everything about every sport, right? Like I was very conscious of appearing stupid or appearing unqualified to do the job. I'm not too proud now to admit I do not understand all the NBA cap stuff. It is just a labyrinth trying to navigate it. The NFL is also complicated. Like it takes me a while to figure out, okay, cap hit, over the cap, percentage over the cap, this, that, the other. The NBA is the worst. Now, the biggest thing you have to know about the NBA is that when you make trades, the money has to match. Like, that's really where you're at. So if you're talking about the Celtics acquiring Kevin Durant, they can't just acquire, Kevin Durant, $40 million contract for a draft pick, right? In baseball, you trade away whatever you want. In the NBA, you want to acquire a $40 million guy, you got to give up about $40 million going back. So, like, it would take Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart probably just to make the money work on getting Kevin Durant. And I'm not in favor of that. I think this Celtics team is good enough to win the title without Durant. I'd rather have the younger player. I'd rather have the player without the injury concerns. Durant seems to be hurt every year the last couple of years, right? It was the Achilles. It was the knee. It seems to be a month that he's out every year or more lately. I don't want that. The Celtics, to me, are good enough as presently constructed to win the title. And their big issue is not solved by Kevin Durant, right? Their big issue is Robert Williams. Their big issue is front court depth. Their big issue is, what happens if Rob is not 100%? If they're going to make a move, they need help in the front court. They don't just need Durant. Everybody wants Durant. I get it. But I'd rather have Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, and figure out the stuff in the front court. Texter says, Brady, it's JD. Do you think the barber listens to your show? No, I don't. No, I don't. I do not think the barber listens to this show. And I would not have done this segment if I thought the barber did listen to the show. But I don't think he does. Because I know what's on every time I'm in the barber shop, and it's not this. It's not sports. It's not sports talk. It's not our station. It's not our show. It's always music. I know the stations that are on in that barber shop. I don't think that's it. I also didn't use his name. I don't think so. So no, I think I'm protected. I also didn't say anything bad about him. I said he did great work, and I feel guilty about it. So he did great work. I recommend him to anybody. Just tell him about the sideburns. JD comes back and says, I think it's funny whether he listens or not. Well, I was hoping it would be funny, but I still felt guilty about it. So when we come back, final segment, there's obviously been a lot of talk about fan conduct at Vermont sporting events. An interesting op-ed piece written by Ben Kaufman of the County Courier. We'll react to it next here on the Brady Farkas Show on DEV.
Don't have time to stop by a bank branch? At Union Bank, it takes less than 5 minutes to open an account online. Union Bank makes opening an account online easy, and they offer several personal checking and savings account options to choose from. Visit uvlocal.com. Union Bank, a Vermont institution for over 130 years, rated best small bank in Vermont by Newsweek, and the top performing publicly traded community bank in New England by the American Bankers Association. Union Bank, stay local, go far. Member FDIC.
Hey everybody, I'm Lee Cattell. Have your lunch with Brady Farkas and me weekdays on the Midday News Service. The latest local news, Brady's sports report, Roger Hill updates from the Forecast Center, plus business, interviews, and breaking news as it happens. The Midday News Service, weekdays during the noon hour on Vermont's news and sports leader, WDEV FM and AM. Streamed at WDEVradio.com.
Stuck in a career slump, wondering if franchise ownership might be right for you? Check out the possibilities with franchise ownership. Daniel Hayes of 100 Acre Consulting can help you understand how the franchise industry works and if it's the right choice for you. Vermont's only certified franchise consultant, Daniel focuses on your unique lifestyle and financial goals. Franchise ownership could be the key to achieving the lifestyle you desire. Find out more at 100acreconsulting.com.
Are you looking to get rid of your used mobile home? Here at Fecto Homes, we don't just sell new mobile homes, we also buy used. If you have a used mobile home that you are looking to sell, we can either accept it as trade and apply the value to a new home with us or purchase it outright. We offer fair prices and quick removal of your mobile home. So reach out to us for a quote today. Fecto Homes, 350 River Street, Montpelier, or visit us at fectohomes.com for more information.
Meet Bob Minetti.
My wife and I just celebrated 45 memorable years together. She and my daughter Katie are my anchors.
Bob and Wendy spent time fundraising for healthcare causes.
I guess I liked it so much, I decided to become a patient.
In 2016, he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer.
I assumed that there was no hope for people with my diagnosis.
Bob participated in a clinical trial that included cutting-edge radiation therapy and surgery. He's been in remission since completion.
I'm so glad that I learned about what was possible for me.
I'm Keisha Sharp. Since losing my mother to pancreatic cancer, I've been working to ensure that everyone facing this diagnosis knows about the immense progress being made. Stand Up to Cancer and Lustgarten Foundation are working together to make every person diagnosed into a long-term survivor, like Bob. Visit pancreaticcancercollective.org.
WDEV also serves the Northeast Kingdom at 101.9 W270BR Island Pond.
For some people, all they need to know about weather is the high temperature for the day. But if you're one of those people who really wants to understand the hows and whys of weather, especially here in the Green Mountain State, then Roger Hill's Weather Classroom podcast is for you. Some of the topics I'll explore are the types of precipitation, global temperature averages, and tropical cyclones. Roger Hill's Weather Classroom podcast is available at WDEVradio.com, Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon Music.
The Brady Farkas Show now has an interactive text line, so reach out now at 802-585-3026.
Now it's back to the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV AM, FM, and WDEVradio.com.
Welcome back in. Brady Farkas Show right here on WDEV AM and FM and WDEVradio.com. Jazz with George Thomas coming up for 2 hours tonight. And then at 9 o'clock, it is special programming, the State of the Union with President Biden. So no Eye on the World with John Batchelor until at least the State of the Union speech is over. Interesting commentary in the County Courier from Ben Kaufman yesterday. I encourage you to read the piece, but basically it centers around the continued conversation of poor fan conduct at games, right? We've heard about racially insensitive comments at high school games. We've heard about gender insensitive comments at games. We've heard about obviously the incident in Alburg last week where there was the death resulting or partially resulting from a fight that broke out at a middle school basketball game. So there's been a lot of incidents of poor fan conduct. Well, Ben writes that basically if you are silent at games now, you are complicit. It's no longer good enough for you to sit in silence and say, well, see, I'm not the problem. He says, you need to stand up and you need to speak up when you see anything. That is a nice sentiment. But I will say it's harder than it sounds, right? It's harder than it sounds. Ben says, and it sounds logical. If you see or hear something poor, you should say something immediately. Either say something to the person, either say something to an administrator, or just get up and go. That all sounds nice. But it's not that simplistic. There's all kinds of reasons that people don't say things. And some of those reasons I can even understand, right? It's unfortunate. It's not cut and dry. I mean, people feel like, I know that if somebody's going off near me, do you think it really helps me to escalate the situation? If I go and confront that person, is that going to help? Sometimes yes, but sometimes no. And people don't want to be the escalator. Just let that guy bark and then eventually he'll be done. That's the thought. So I get people who do that. And then there's also the thought process of like, well, hey, that's the away team fan. They only come here once this year. Just let them go. We won't have to deal with it anymore. I get that too. Sometimes you don't want to speak up because you think it might impact your kid who's on the team. So there are reasons why people don't say anything. And I can understand that. I don't necessarily think it makes you complicit if you don't want to escalate something. It's a really important topic, and it's a really hard topic. And I don't know what the right answer is. Ben, I give him credit that he's got the courage to go out and say what he thinks the answer is, because I don't have a good answer right now. But what I would say is I think the first step is administrators need to figure out, okay, what is our biggest problem? Is it opposing fan to opposing fan? Is it opposing fans to opposing players? Is it fans to officials? Is it fans to coaches? When we can identify which of those buckets is worse, is the worst right now, then I think we have a chance to start to figure out the solution. I don't think I understand why people don't always say something. Yes, they should. Ben is right. They should. And I should have said that up higher. They should, but I get why they don't sometimes. But I think administrators need to ask the question, all right, what are we most concerned about here? Are we most concerned about opposing fan to opposing fan to player, fan to official, or fan to coach? And when you figure that out, then we can start to have the dialogue about how to make things better. Because what we've got right now is unsettling and it's untenable. We can't have it anymore. It's the Brady Farkas Show here on WDEV, AM and FM, and WDEVradio.com. Jazz with George Thomas is coming up next. The full show podcast will be available shortly on the Brady Farkas Show podcast channel. Thanks to Ross Tucker. Thanks to Bobby Marks. More big guests coming up tomorrow on the Brady Farkas Show. I think, fingers crossed, former Red Sox general manager Dan Duquette is stopping by tomorrow. I'm firming it up as we speak. The Radio Row at Home continues on tomorrow on DEV.
Hi, this is Anson Tebbets, co-host of For the Birds, heard Saturdays on WDEV. Each week, Chip Darmstadt and I discuss bird sighting.